Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer 7811-633. So the Bommer 7811-633 is comprised of several components, and I'm going to show them to you all at once. First of all, the business end of the pivot. The 7811 is your medium duty, hold open, double acting floor pivot. Medium duty means that it's going to be up to 90-pound doors, 1 3/8 to 1 3/4 thick, maximum door width 3 foot. Bomber has lighter duty versions, and they have heavier duty versions, and they have versions non-hold open. This is the hold open version. The 632 part of the part number means that it is in the polished brass finish. So we'll talk more about the spring assembly in a moment. There are two face plates, 632 or polished brass finish, one there, and the other one is identical. They're literally identical plates. You're going to get a heel plate, which goes on the edge of the door. You're going to get a top pivot, which is comprised of two components. Okay, you've got your header portion here, then your door portion here. That'll go like that. Okay, you're going to get screws to hold the unit to the floor, screws to hold everything together, basically. The face plates to the door, the unit to the floor, the pivot to the door and to the header. Okay, and you're also going to get a tension rod, last but not least. Now, I've installed these many times. I have machined mortised doors for these many times. It's somewhat intimidating the first time you look at it, and there's a link below this video to the instructions along to the template, which, you know, both of those documents really act as the same sort of idea. But the bottom line is this: you need to make this fit to the bottom of the door, and you need to make it so that this tab is flush. Okay, so that's pretty easy. You need to mortise the top portion to your header, okay, and to the door, and then after that you're pretty much done. However, there's an important aspect to this installation that is the paramount thing to really discuss, and that is the radiusing of the stiles of the door. In step 1 of the instructions, and the document below here might look a little bit different, but it's the same information. Step 1 is to radius the door. You've got to radius over the door edge completely. If it was a square edge door, the door would bury into the jamb. There would not be enough clearance unless you were to make that gap between the door and frame quite large. The door would not open and close because the outside edges of the door would hit the jamb. They want to have an 1.5 inch radius on the door edge, the entire style of the door, and you should do that on both sides of the door. And if you do so, that will allow you a 1/4 inch clearance between the edge of the door and the jamb. Now, the radius of the work that you do to the style of the door cannot be any greater than your door thickness, because then your radius won't be tight enough to allow you that 1/4 inch margin. But an 1.5 inch radius is very common, and what you'll end up doing, at least this is how I've done it, you'll take your door and lay it flat on your sawhorse, and you'll want to clamp it down. And you're going to need a very large round over bit with an 1.5 inch radius. Okay, you're going to put that into your router, and if you've got a regular router, you might have to modify the base, cut the hole in the base of the router larger to fit this 3-inch diameter bit into it. It'd be quite huge because it's 1.5 inch radius. And once you get that in there, you'll be able, and you get one with a bearing on the bottom of it, you'll set the depth of it such that, you know, your profile is ending right your radius is starting right at the edge of the center of the door, then you'll be taking it off like this. So you'll put your router onto the door here and start at one end and then go all the way down. And don't force it to take too much off in one pass. Don't fight the router. You'll get chatter and burn marks on your door. Take a skim off of it. Then you can come back a second time and and get it good. And then the third time it's just a cleaning process. And be very careful that when your tool is exiting the door that you don't do this. Otherwise you're going to round over more of the door than you ought to. Just take that and just go straight across and exit the door at the end, just straight. Don't be pushing it this way, because that third pass is just going to be for cleaning, really. So keep that in mind. You'll have one side of the door done. Then at that point, flip the door over. Get the other face to the top in the same style towards you and do the same operation. Then turn the door around, do this side, flip it over, and do that side. Then your stiles are going to be completely radiused. Think of the top row of tile in the bathroom. That's called the bull nose. But since you're doing both faces of the door, then it becomes a radius. It's like a bull nose on each face. That aspect of doing this that I've just gone over is really the cliff notes of how to do it. I speak from a perspective of experience, having done it countless times. If you have any questions on how to do it, call me. Reach out to me and let me know. I'd be happy to help you. After that, the rest of this is really elementary off of the template. All the dimensions are here. So if we were going to move to step 2, at this point what they want you to do is mortise the top of the door and the header for the pivot. Frame portion, header portion, door portion. Now when I've done this in the past and having lots of tools at my disposal, they're calling for a 1-inch diameter mortise in the top of the door is shown here. I would take a 1-inch Forstner bit, and really all you got here are 3 circles. One circle, the next circle, and the third circle. And I'd take my Forstner bit and I would just mark my center lines, and I would just drill 3 holes the exact depth of 5/32, so just over 1/8 of an inch for that. No chiseling, no muss, no fuss, fits real nice. Forstner bits are great, they're bottom end bits, so they'll work real good for that. You'll be able to do the same for the header, and that's real important because that's an exposed part. And then of course you'll have to drill the hole, which is going to be 5/8 diameter, 5/8 deep, or the pin to go down into the top of the door like that. So you're drilling 5/8 deep, 5/8 diameter for that. That's just a regular twist drill bit. Step 3 now is mortising the bottom of the door. All the dimensions are there. They're all here. Okay. Bottom line, you just need to make this fit. This has got to be flush with the bottom of the door. This portion has to be flush with the edge of the door. Now you're thinking, wait a minute, my door's radiused. Well, that's true. And that 1.5 inch radius has got a lot to do with the radius on that heel plate. That's going to be 1.5 inch radius. Okay? And this is what you're going to attach to the edge, just like this. Then your faceplates are going to tuck over this profile, this detail here, which we'll go over in a minute. Okay? So, you know, I'm not going to beleaguer all the points here, but, you know, you'll need to make this channel in the top too, because this pin will travel as I emulate the door double acting. You can see how that pin travels. And the fact that I can do this with my hand tells me a couple of things. A, that it's medium duty. I wouldn't be able to do it with a heavy duty version. And if I were to crank it over far enough, there it is, I get it to lock hold open in place. This is hold open in a 90-degree orientation right now. I'm going to release this and hopefully do so without hurting my hand. Okay, there we go. What you've got here is, you can see right here there's a bird's mouth situation. And that's going to come over the bearing end here. And that's what's going to lock that open in a 90-degree hold open. Okay? So getting all that mortised is really straightforward. Just follow the dimensions there. when I've done this, I've always let the router do as much of the work as possible. It's the cleanest cut that you'll get. And you can do most of this with a router. And then do the small work just with a chisel, I suppose. If you're going to do more than one of these doors, make yourself a template to allow the router to do all the work. If you want to discuss making a template, by all means, call me. At that point, step 4 is going to be attaching the assembly to the bottom of the door. Okay, all your screws are provided for doing that. Step 5 is, once this is attached to the door and your frame portion is installed, your header portion is installed, your door portion is installed, you'll get these two to go together, and as you're doing that, you're going to tip the bottom of the door in, just as shown in step 5. Step 6, of course, then is just attaching your faceplates, and that's just real obvious how that's going to go. Those are just going to screw right onto the face. They're going to cover that portion that you've chiseled all that area out of. At that point, you're done. Except, before you attach your faceplates, that tension rod is going to go into the tension collar here, and that's where you'll be able to set your spring tension. So leave your faceplates off, or at least one of them, and get that door operating the way that you want before you put your faceplates on. And then at that point, you're done. There's nothing else to do. Available in several different finishes as well, along with light and heavy duty versions, hold open and non-hold open, as we discussed. I've seen these installed in installations that are decades old. This is tried and true hardware. It's a spring, so there's no hydraulic control over anything. But door residential applications between a dining room and a kitchen, you see these all the time. Homes built in the 1940s, very common. I see these in the northwest suburbs of Chicago, or the northwest side of Chicago. See them all the time there. The only real challenge is having the tools really to be set up, especially that radius, 1.5 radius round over bit. Word to the wise, you're going to want to make sure that you've got wood that you're actually screwing this down to. If you're going to cut that much out of the door, keep in mind that you might get into the particle board or the inner core of the door. That's no good. You'll find that if you've got a weak substrate that you've installed this hardware to, that over time it's going to fatigue. You might even get it installed, and if there's some loose wood down there, you'll hear creaking every time you use it. You don't want that. It's got to be a substantial situation for the door at the bottom to get this operating correctly. And other than that, it's straightforward material. Bommer is a name synonymous with good quality. Logo here. Just want to draw your attention to what it says right above that logo. That's made in USA, a fact that Bommer is quite proud of, as am I, to represent them. Very good quality company, Bommer is. Very good quality products. If you have any questions on the Bommer 7811-632, double acting medium duty hold open pivot, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you very much.